Outplayed. How China beat the US at its own free trade game. China was welcomed into the WTO in 2001, kicking off the flood of low-cost Chinese goods into US markets. From favored trade status to forced technology transfers, Beijing leveraged American goodwill, market access, and corporate greed to become Washington's most powerful strategic competitor. Around the turn of the century, the US gave up its market dominance on critical minerals, began mass importing Chinese goods, and exporting intellectual property to access Chinese markets, all while the Chinese Communist Party grew into America's biggest foe. The Chinese have been predatory, and they've engaged in criminal acts, theft of US intellectual property. But the story here is not China, said China expert and Gatestone Institute fellow Gordon Chang. The story here is that we allowed them to get away with this. We knew what was going on. We've known it for decades, and we never really took effective action to stop it. Here's a look back at 5 times China manipulated U.S. industry and policymakers into more favorable economic terms.
In general, yes, the Chinese have been predatory. They've engaged in criminal acts, theft of US intellectual property. But the story here is not China. The story here is that we allowed them to get away with this. We knew what was going on. We've known it for decades, and we never really took effective action to stop it. The big pivot was when President Trump imposed his 25% tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. That was supposed to be a remedy for the theft of intellectual property. But a 25% tariff didn't change the Chinese. They kept on taking our stuff. I mean, as we know from, for instance, the director of national intelligence, John Ratcliffe, in December 2020, he wrote that famous Wall Street Journal op-ed. He said that China steals about $500 billion of US IP each year. That's continued through the Biden administration. I'm sure it's happening now. But we know it's going on, and we don't take the effective. We know what's going on, but we haven't taken effective measures to stop it. So this is on us.